2, 1. Hi, everybody. It is Global Party Healing from the Inside Out, and I have Tess Miller-Sharp from Australia. Whereabouts in Australia?
I'm actually in the area near Byron Bay, which is the most easterly point of the Australian mainland. So we get a lot of tourists here because we have this amazing lighthouse that people would love to go and see.
Oh, and is that what inspired you to call your session to how to be a lighthouse and in a time of soul convergence?
I think definitely there's some aspect for that. Yes. Yeah. There's like the lighthouse is this beautiful beam of energy which comes out and everyone can see it. It's that sense of being alone on its own, yet being connected to all the other lighthouses and spreading that light over everybody that sees it. So there's not a sense of being alone, but there's a sense of standing very much in individuality, in the sense of I am my person. This is my soul expression. This is who I am, and this is the light that I shine.
And as a lighthouse, I mean, there isn't a lighthouse like houses side by side. Like their lighthouses are spaced very far out because their light really does expand a far circle. So I'm gonna say that we're being a lighthouse onto the world here and this global party, and so many others are doing, coming back to finding that spirit within in this space. And our light is just shining and rippling and we're converging. But can you explain the soul convergence for other people that might be going, what does that mean?
Yeah, so what I notice, not just within myself, but those that I meet and those that I work with in my alchemical transformation space that I hold, is that we are really getting into the nitty-gritty of waking up to who we really are and releasing the soul trauma, the DNA, the ancestral woundings, and the debris, really. It's like debris that we have come through into this lifetime with, that we have been born into. And so there's that, what is left is this converging of all that, the essence of the joy of our true soul expression. So that's what's converging. It's like this one, this one, this one, this one, all these strands, and they're all just blending in so that we can be this beautiful lighthouse in our entirety, in our integrity with our soul expression, without all of the stuff.
Anymore. Right. So all this like debris, right, is the sense that we've thought or we've identified with, but it really isn't ours, is it?
A lot of the time it's not, cellular biology, microbiome, all sorts of things, all of the belief systems that are passed down to us. There's so much that we see as ourselves, which actually isn't our true soul expression. I think it's 90% of who we are is not really who we think we are.
So saying that, you can understand now why, if everybody listening, if 90% of who you think you are isn't who you really are, all that is going to be alchemized. Is that a good way to say it? Over this global transformation, people are going to come face to face with what they need to come face to face with, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, a crisis, we call it, a healing crisis. It's a time to really deal with that negative pain, with that negative thought, with the way that we move our bodies in the world and the patterns and the habits that we do. And when we bump up against those and we find that we get ourselves in some sort of pain, emotional pain, whatever it is, we're like, not feeling alive or full, then it's a time to take that personal responsibility on the self-care of ourselves, to do the personal inquiry. Like, what's really going on here? Like, what am I telling myself that gives me those emotions that would compel me to take that action? And is that the truest thing to do right now that makes me feel joyful?
Yeah, it was said earlier today, and I wonder, when you said make you feel joyful, are you finding that there was a belief system in the past that said you got to suffer through it, and I say it all the time, breakdown leads to breakthrough, but it's like through the pain and the gain. But is it possible, do you think, that we're actually learning that we can expand in joy and the transformation can be just a sense of, oh, I don't like this sweater anymore. I think I'll just give it away. Like that pattern doesn't work for me anymore. I can just toss it. Can it come that joyfully, easily?
I think it does. I think we are really in a time of instant manifestation. Like we're receiving things so fast right now. And, if we take heed of that, if we listen to that, if we're really focused, then and aware and awake to ourselves, we can really just toss that jumper out so quickly. And that upgrade can be effortless. It doesn't have to be painful if you're willing to just lay it out as a structure. Without the emotion, possibly. It's like, oh, when I do this, this happens, this happens, this happens. If I take the emotion out, look at that pattern. Wow, does that pattern serve me? I don't think so. I'm going to ditch that pattern. But what's the pattern that's going to serve me better? So you can't change it. You need to create a new one. So creating the new thing can be really inspirational and effortless if we just allow ourselves to look at the program first.
You sound like the way I work. So how do you work? So because I'm like, that's it. I go, okay, this is the situation. What does it feel? And that picture trigger, and where do you want to go? And poof, jump, so how does it happen for you? When a client comes to you, who's a typical, there's no typical anymore. I should get rid of that. Okay, everything is atypical. So right now, if somebody was stressed or really feeling anxious about the situation, would that be a good time? Or is it because this Corona teacher is present, it's not necessarily something to get rid of? Or do we know that their fear related to it and their anxiousness is definitely passé?
Okay, I kind of lost the second half of the question, but what came to me initially was when we realize, so somebody's coming there like in pain, the first thing to do, I feel, is to acknowledge that and go, okay, it's okay what you're feeling. So I think that's so crucial, to not have people feel that they are unsafe or that they're holding shame around their expression, whatever that is. One of the key things that I hold as like my main premise in life is that we're not who we think we are. We're more than that. And so when we are in pain, most of the time, 99.999% of the time, it's the stories we're making up. So the free space that we create there allows the non-judgment of that. Yeah. Okay. So you're in pain. All right. What are you telling yourself? And also, where are you feeling that in your body? Like, what part of you? I really love to use the body as a way to inform. And so a really powerful question I find is like, how are you defining yourself right now? Are you feeling powerless? Are you feeling shameful? Are you, like their feelings, but are you defining yourself as not powerful? Are you defining yourself as at the whim of others, or stupid or futile, or those are really great words to pull out. And then when that is like, wow, I'm really telling myself that's who I am, and I'm really telling myself that this situation is unkind, that it's I have no control over it, that we can go to so many places. Right. If we're looking at this epidemic or pandemic that's happening at the moment, once we acknowledge those things we're telling ourselves that are creating those emotions that are causing us pain, we can choose then to define how we would choose to feel instead. That's the last thing. Yeah. In between, you have to dig, asking for a time frame. So like, how old am I feeling right now when I think that thought and have that feeling? And, and sometimes it can come up going, it just doesn't feel like it's in this lifetime. It feels so old, this feeling and this thought together. And then go even deeper. What is happening here? Like, what if I just visualize, where am I if I take myself to that place where that feeling and thought is now, and what's happening around me and who's there? And then once we can explore that part of it, it's so much easier from a higher perspective or from a wise perspective to look down onto that situation and go, what would I say to that part of me right now that's experiencing that? What advice would I offer, or what is needed by that part of me? Might be to cry, might be to scream, might be to, not just verbalize or physically do something, but might just be just sit with that pain just a little bit longer and allow yourself to fully feel it. Allow it to be expressed, because in an expressing, we can release it from our body. So in that releasing, we can come to a place of peace, just if we give ourselves permission. And then, okay, what would I love right now? Like, what is the thing that's going to serve that part of me right now? What is it I need? Might be go for a walk, have a cup of tea, lie down, go to sleep, breathe, write an angry letter, but maybe not send it. So there's so many things. And I think that's where the crux of my talk is that when we can do this self-process, this compassion with ourselves, to have the time to really investigate, that's when we can be personally responsible and stop projecting this angst and fear onto others. That's so super important, because then we would attract it into our lives. If that's what we believe how the world is and how we are, we're going to find something to meet that vibration. So this is where it comes into the, using this time of crisis or breakthrough that we're going through now to really do deeper self-inquiry.
I would love you just to repeat that again, because I think for a lot of people, they just went right over their head, and it was a very key point, right? Because, do you know what you just said?
Not 100%, but
I can. Okay, go for it. You can rephrase it. I know it's like it just comes through in that moment, and I don't know. But so the acknowledging going through this and the impact on what we're feeling with others, and then the impact that has on us, right? We have to be self-responsible for our own feelings, and knowing that mass fear, for instance, we don't have to identify with it, right? But if we are starting to feel this way, it's our responsibility to deal with that, correct?
Yeah, and if there's someone who can hold you in a sacred space of non-judgment and compassion and can allow you to unravel it and unfold it yourself, whatever that inquiry is, then seek help from that person, because not everybody has the skills. It can take people down into a spiral. So I suggest finding people that love you deeply and want you to thrive. And so, we really are in a time of noticing the triggers, and realizing that we were on a vibration at some deeper level of attracting those triggers. And what can we do personally to be responsible for changing our vibration and attracting another type of experience? So this is the elevation. This is the alchemical, where we take the lower energy, the lower thought, and we transmute it, we pull it apart, we look at it, we reprogram it, and then we can lift it up and elevate it to a higher thought, to a higher expression. I love upgrading. It's just this whole alchemy thing of, right, what's really not going on that's so great here? And how can we transform that into something that really fills our heart and soul, and that expression that actually changes our cellular structure, changes our brain waves, our neural pathways, everything. Like, we are in an optimal moment to thrive. This is like Tough Mudder. This is like a marathon. This is like, you're going to come across all of these obstacles. So, use them to find that strength within you, like you would in a marathon. Don't not do the ride. Do the ride.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of these people actually that are going through this experience might not have wanted to do the Tough Mudder or the marathon or go on that ride, right? Because you yourself, many of us have done our work, have invested in that to get to the place we're in. And a lot of some of these people that have been forced into this, as Emiliana was saying, it's in their home, but it's like really giving them this opportunity to go within. And as they're within their house and they're seeing the dynamics of what's going on, they're noticing, are they still afraid of something out there? And how is that reflected in here? Because isn't that part of the alchemy, is realize everything out there is in here? So if you're out there and you're fearful or you're concerned and you're putting all your energy out there, what is that saying about you in here?
Yeah, it's saying that you're holding that vibration that's attracting it. There's some part of you, not all of you, maybe
Right.
not the conscious part, but there is some little smidgen of vibration that is wanting to be met and validated and verified as being true. And so when you know what that is, then you'll change. So you think if you're in a good mood, you're usually going to come across other people that are in a good mood because you're smiling and your nervous system is relaxed, and you tend to bump up against those people.
Right.
So it works the same. Like we create everything. We create every experience because of what we're holding inside of ourselves that wants to be met and validated.
So what would you say to the person that is potentially realizing in this process already that maybe first they were resisting, now they're kind of going, well, it's kind of nice, I'm seeing things about myself, I'm relaxing, but let's say I'm realizing I'm in a relationship now that maybe I hadn't even noticed the person really because we were so distracted before. And now we're both quarantined together, technically. Right? Like it's like I can't even say get out of my space because we're here. How what is maybe some tools you could give them? Because I just know maybe it's just the older generation, but I'm sure it's in everybody. But I've been in the forest walking and I see these people and I'm like, yeah, she's not happy. I'm coming home to work, right? And like, yeah, I didn't think that, I didn't realize that's how I felt about my husband until he arrived home.
I have a husband too, so I can relate to that. Luckily, we're not quarantined here. We have a lot of nature around us. We're doing great. But
Yeah.
for those people that are, get a notepad, write it out. I think that's the easiest thing. Limit reactions that are not from a place of love. But yeah, get the notepad ready. Just start, oh, I'm triggered by this. Oh, he said that. That's what I thought. You'll be amazed what will come out once you start writing. That's the personal responsibility. Remembering that if you're in an environment that's close, then you are going to react and project something that feels not so great to the other person. Then they're going to do it to you. It's only going to escalate. You're both going to be meeting each other and ramping it up. So that's why I would just take a step back and just notice how your body's responding. When you get angry, like, can you just, that whole thing of counting to 10, like really bring the counting to 10, grab your notebook, write it all out. And I think the last question to ask is, how am I defining myself? And see where that takes you. Once you feel you've got it all out onto paper in a safe way, then how am I defining myself in this moment?
Yeah, that's great. I'm writing this all down in the chat here for people that So, because realistically, right, if they're forced to do their own inner work because it's like as you said, if you're reacting and they're reacting, and in the past situation, it'd be like, well, they could walk out the door and distract themselves or numb the pain or however it is. Now we can have some wonderful transformations going on because people need to have forgiveness for themselves in the experience and realize it's not about them, it's about what are you feeling and how is your body feeling in that process of that interaction.
Yeah. And then there's the other side of that, which is saying no. I don't like it. I don't like it when you talk to me like that. Can you not speak to me in that manner? That feels really degrading or disrespectful. Not to go into a big dialogue, but I think when we share, when people step our boundaries, because that's what creates a trigger. When our boundaries have been overstepped, our defense systems go up. Yeah. So I think that that's the other thing to really take heed of, is to have good boundaries and to respect those boundaries that you have, and respect others' boundaries as well. You know, when they say, I need space right now, I can't have you near me, I'm really angry and I'm working through something. And with love, I would ask you to honor that, to step away. And I think that's a really powerful boundary to speak in a calm way, if you can.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is so relevant, because you're taking responsibility. You're saying, I need a break. I need to process. And I can just speak from my perspective, and I know other women, when they're sometimes in a relationship, they want the male to deal with it now. And I've done some talks with, but that's not how males actually work. They're slower to the process. They need to think, and they need to be. So when we're like, snap to it, and they say, I need some time. They're like, no, I want to know it now. They're actually telling us what they need, and we are hearing it.
Yes. So Alison Armstrong of the Queen's Code fame wrote that amazing book. And one of the things that she says when you're dealing with men, women, and men,
right.
Is when you approach somebody with what I would call a take, you want their energy. So you want to take their attention and bring it to you, which is the, wheel of consent work.
Right.
Consent. Okay. Can I, excuse me? This is the dialogue that would be the best one to use. Use your own, but this is the one I find that works best. Excuse me, are you busy right now? Do you mind if I take X amount of time? I'm feeling like I would like to share something with you. Do you have the space for that? Can you hold me in that sharing? So 1, you're not just barging in there. 2, you're not just dumping. And 3, you're waiting, all of that is non-permission work, okay? So what you're doing is you're setting up the other person politely to know that you matter and that you are in need and you appreciate their help. Now, it's okay to say no if someone puts this request to you. So you have to factor that into the question. You have to be okay, you have complete, as you know, you can say yes or no if this doesn't work for you right now. So that's acknowledging their boundary and what they need to do for themselves right now. So it's a very respectful way to ask for space when you're in need, and also know that there's probably other people you could connect with if it doesn't suit that person at the time. So you're not alone in this ever.
And that's part of that trust factor, to realize if you really need someone to talk to and that person isn't there, there's probably somebody else you can go to, even if you think you have nobody else. Yeah. When you stand in that space of, I really need to connect with somebody, there's somebody to connect with. Now, here, go
ahead. The other thing I was going to say is, there's Facebook groups where you can dump whatever it is you want to dump, in a safe environment. I think it's a really big lesson in vulnerability. How to be vulnerable and ask when you're in a time of need. Yeah. It's a great strength to tone.
I would agree with you, because it's in that process you also learn to receive, right? And I think that's what a lot of us have been do. We've got to do it. And now it's about receiving, because we were given this body, we were given this earth, we were given everything. And this is an interesting one, that this is about health now that we're being confronted with. And do you feel you were given health, or do you still feel like it's something outside yourself that you have to, be wary of? It's I think going to shift paradigms of how people feel about what's needed to stay healthy. And it's another one of those deep topics that are going to be alchemized, and it's going to be brought back here. What comes to me is I've heard a few people say to me, I'm an empath and I'm affected by other people's energies, or I wanted to care about my friends and I reached out to them and now I feel worse. So I hear, oh, I'm a victim to everybody else's situation, right? How do you help somebody like that get to the point where they can take responsibility and guide them through the process that they can actually release that belief system?
Their belief systems, or the person who is just released onto them?
Well, one, I feel like they feel like they're being caring, and then they're like taking on other people. Like it's like that whole story of the energy vampire. I go, well, I don't think you're just lying there going, oh, take my energy. So there's, to me, it's being a bit of responsibility to realize I'm being affected, and I need to say no.
Well, I think that's what I just that process that I just described of asking for somebody's time and space. So if you've got a friend who's in need, send out to all your friends in need. I'd recommend this. If you would love me to hold you in this time of crisis and listen to you, I would really appreciate it if you would request through this dialogue of, do you have any time? Are you okay right now? So seek permission first. And what that does is it lets the person who's being asked enough time to really feel into, are they ready right now? Like, have they got stuff going on? Are they in a space now to hold somebody 100%? If the answer is yes, then it is all about the hazmat suit, right? Putting on that energetic hazmat suit. Okay, ground yourself. Really imagine, fig trees, how big their roots are and exposed from the ground. Imagine that you don't just have roots going down to the core of the earth, but they are like a fig tree. So really grounding, really connecting up to your guides and all of those energies, those benevolent energies that are there to protect us and support us. Yeah. So make your container safe for you first. Put on that hazmat suit knowing that you are there to listen. You're not there to fix. You're not there to feel. Yeah. Empathy is great. It allows you to feel. I too have that very high. And what it allows me to do is feel into the story that they're making up about the situation, their programming that is feeling the pain, their reaction that is feeling it. And so when I know that that's not who they really are, that this is the painful part that has made up a story which isn't in alignment with their soul expression. It's not in all pain, I believe, I don't even believe, I just get that it's so true. The pain, it comes from the thoughts and the beliefs. So knowing that what they are saying is what they want to shift. Okay. So if you're someone that feels dumped on or feels like heavy afterwards, it's because you've bought into the story. Right. You've bought into the release. So don't buy into the release, but love them compassionately as they share, holding them in a higher vibration. You can relate to them. You can go, yeah, I feel your pain in that. I really feel you, how that feels for you. You don't even have to ask a question. Some people just want to get it out. And if, people aren't in that place to write down whatever it is they want to get out and they need support, then just hold the space is all I say. No, it's not yours. And if you are triggered by it, then there is some part of you that then you can do self-inquiry on. But the majority of their expression that they want to share with you, can be an opportunity, but the majority of it is their release as well. So if you are triggered.
So that part of that, being that lighthouse to say, hey, I am shining my light and I'm guiding you to be able to release your own.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is about taking this moment that we're in, or this however many years it's going to take, taking this experience of our earth transforming so it can hold our higher vibration, so it can hold this convergence of our souls into being these beautiful beings, and letting go of the stuff that just doesn't serve. Like the earth is vibrating higher, we need to be in harmony with that to be here. So yeah, so holding yourself with compassion, with love, getting the support that you need, knowing that it's all in divine timing, and that you are safe, and that you asked for this. On some level, you asked to be here now, and really enjoy the experience of self-discovery and remembering personal responsibility, and that there's some part of you which is much, much greater, who knows what's going on, and shine that into the world, and be connected to the other lighthouses in the world as well, harmonizing.
Oh,
Yeah.
doesn't that just feel good? And it's like there really is a letting go happening, and we have a lovely other lady in the waiting room here, Colleen Godfrey, that would love to share too and join in this conversation. May I bring her up, Tess?
Beautiful.
Perfect. Here we go. There. Dun, dun, dun. So,
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there. How you guys doing?
Good, thank you.
very well. You're in Chicago area, so USA, right? From Wisconsin, where are you in? Middle East.
I'm closer to Minneapolis. I'm about 50 miles south of Minneapolis.
And so, as you were hearing the last little part, Colleen, as you were there, we're talking about the fact of being a lighthouse.
Just a second. I've got to take these headphones out. They're really bad sound quality.
Hear me without them?
I can hear you without them. Are you getting reverberation, Tess?
Yeah, I am. I'm not sure what to do for sound.
I'm thinking it might actually be me. So do you mind if I get my headphones? I shall be back.
Yes, please. Do what you need to do.
I'm going to try the different headphones here and see if these help, but I don't know if they will or not. So we'll just troubleshoot. That's all we can do anyway. There we go.
Yeah, that's reminding me. Actually, I'm not even sure where I put my earphones. I've been going all day long. So, letting go and moving forward and embracing this whole wonderful journey.
Yeah. We're always letting go anyways. I mean, everything's always falling away. Everything's always changing. So, I mean, we're actually really good at embracing change because our whole life has been changed. So I think that sometimes we can get hung up and maybe fall into clinging. But if we let go of clinging, then the change is just unfolding, ongoing. So to me, it's, I'm going to try this over here and see if this works, and it might not. Say something, please.
I'm
Hello.
saying hello. It's all good for everybody?
I'm back. Is that better?
That's good. Is it good for everybody else? Because maybe I need to get my headset. Okay, no.
I don't think my headset even works. I know it's a brand new one, but I'm not hearing anything through it. So I'm going to get rid of it.
That's I'm sure that's part of the conversation. We're broadcasting out this live. We're saying, hello, everybody. It's okay with global transformation. Are you going? And other people are going, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. All I can hear is about this stuff that's happening. And I'm looking at the news consistently and I'm feeling this stuff. And I just heard Colleen say, oh, it's natural to change. And some of those people I think are easily going with it. I'm meeting all kinds of them. They're just feeling like, oh my God, this is like mental health break.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can overdo the news. I think, a media fast is essential. And I fast every day. I'm an intermittent faster. So I eat from noon until 8 o'clock. I eat healthy meals. And then I don't eat anything from 8 p.m. in the evening until noon the next day. And I do that consistently. I'm not, if somebody really wants to meet for breakfast, I will eat breakfast just to be kind of normalize it for them and not make people self-conscious. And I think we need to do that with the news. I think that we need to decide how much news we're going to take in. And I know you guys were talking about body awareness. Really feeling in your body is being exposed to constant news stories ratcheting up my anxiety. Is it good for me? And my belief is that we need to be informed because, this virus, it's a serious thing. So we have to understand what we're dealing with and react appropriately. But at some point, there's a tipping point where it's just overindulgence. And we actually do ourselves harm by taking in too much news. So I always encourage people to play around with the media fast. How much news do you really need? And then choose it really intelligently. You don't have to expose yourself to everything. You can actually look for the things that you know might be helpful and tune out the rest. That's how I do it.
And I think you can tune into the news, in different ways. I can tune into the news in Australia and find out that, they're still moving around, and you've had, sure, I think you might have been the first ones that had the toilet paper rampage. But,
we did. We just totally ran out of toilet paper, and you couldn't even find it at the stores. I went to the store every day, and they said that they sold 3 times more than they usually did, and the suppliers really needed some time to play catch up. So, well, they said, if you really need toilet paper, be here at 8 o'clock on this morning, and you can buy 1 package. So I went with my son, and I said, you know what? I'll buy a pack, and you'll buy a pack. And we got I got there at 10 before 8. We went into the store, and all the toilet paper was almost sold out. There were 4. So I'm 5'3", and my son is 6'3". So from what my view, I couldn't see. I'm like, they already sold it all out, but he's tall. He goes, no, Mom, there's still a couple way up here. And so we ended up, there were 4 packs of toilet paper left. We got 2 packs. So I was like, it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I don't believe in the scarcity model. Even if everything becomes really scarce on its own, then let's just be open to that. Then we'll be in that field when we're there. But I definitely don't think that we need to start hoarding all kinds of toilet paper and canned goods and water and all of these things. Is just depleting the system. So to me, there's a lot of things where people are just overreacting. And
So let me ask you this. This was like what Colleen was just sharing about the hoarding, because I'm trying to take this from just an individual scale sometimes. And we're healing I believe the whole planet, right? In this
yeah.
So what is that story that we're healing from our ancestral standpoint that we're lacking? We're always outside, there's something outside ourselves. We don't have it all. We have yet to find that inner abundance. Have you had any personal revelations there?
Yes, for me personally, yes, definitely. My father was a war baby, so I grew up with this scarcity in the family. Had to penny pinch, and had to. He was a hoarder. You better keep that just in case. So I do think that that's what is triggered at the moment, is our learned belief, and it is in our DNA as well. But it's a habit that we've learned to do, is that there is not enough, and so therefore we go about hoarding and taking more than we need. So therefore that confirms that there is not enough. So it's a vicious cycle.
You mean just the same?
You were better. As you're doing that, I'm going to jump. There's someone else came to join the party, and you might recognize her, Tess. Have you seen this one before? Miss Leah Foley? See, so Canada, United States, Australia. Okay. And
Very
you
good.
guys all look like you're wearing more summer stuff like I would have been in Costa Rica, but I'm not going back for a while since the flights are, the borders are all closed. So we're releasing from yourself personal, from ancestry of the, whether it's the war or the depression, things like that. So is this global maybe consciousness that we're releasing all these, like Europe is on lockdown? Is that possibly also because their ancestors had experienced all that anxiety and fear and had to hide previously, because of the war? We're releasing that, we're not having the experience. Can we draw that conclusion, or am I going too big?
No, I don't think you're going too big. I think that there's let's just say this behavior that we're experiencing now is not new. These structures or these steps have all happened before. When you look at, I think there's a YouTube clip which is like the history of the world in 6 minutes or 12 minutes or something, and it's amazing when you look at what has happened in humanity around control, population control, scarcity, potato famine, It's not new, but our response to it can be new. So if we are stuck in that, in our DNA, in our ancestral timelines, where our body is informing us, I know what this is like. I've been here before. This is what we need to do now. So that's the opportunity to step outside of that programming, really, and then look at, okay, so if the world is abundant, I mean, just one example, really, I went for a walk the other day and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. The tree is still there. Everything is still there. Like, nature is all still there. Nothing in my visual world with regards to the planet Earth that I could see has changed. It's the outside circumstances in society which have changed. And how do I choose to let that impact me or not, is where I believe we come into the lighthouse, into that strength again of the core. Lighthouses are so strong. It always comes back to our reaction. How do we want to, do we want to take action, or do we want to do a reaction?
Or do we want to recognize even that we're just noticing what our response would be and realizing that no longer serves us, so it's time to let it go, right, Colleen?
Yeah, I think so. And letting go, you almost have to commit to it as a practice and explore the territory of what would happen if I just let things go. Like, what if I just try not to control anything today? And there's different exercises we can do. One thing that some people can do is just start to say yes to opportunities rather than saying no. Just, you could dedicate like a whole year to just like saying yes to things, just to see, just to notice, like, my internal reaction might be no, but I'm committed to saying yes, just to see what that would be like. That's one conscious way you can choose to expand. And there might be some really, some things that you absolutely need to say no to, like if somebody said step out in front of a train or something, but there's ways that we can consciously choose to relax and to let go. I've been a long time meditator, so I go on long retreats. And if you're on a retreat, you're just following the schedule. You're basically just sitting there with yourself the whole time. And a whole big things fall away, radical things fall away, things that belief systems fall away like in a week's time. You can let go of just all kinds of stuff that you weren't even conscious going into the retreat that you were holding on to. And so this is a time when we can explore what would it be like if I didn't resist? What would it be like if I if I notice my anxiety, but I don't act on it, what would that be like? And, who here is clinging? Like, who here is clinging? And do a kind of self-inquiry. And those really simple practices are liberative. They will free you, and they also will help you access deeper levels of insight. And when we have deeper levels of insight and we recognize that we're always safe and we're all interconnected, there's really nothing to let go of. There's nothing to hold on to, and there's nothing to let go of. It's just, you're just radically present, and it's it's free. It feels like liberation. It feels great.
So in this particular time, I'm liking the background on Leah here, right? So we've got the shells and it's circular. And I feel like this is the circle of life, and people are being confronted by this idea that they're dying or could die. But with every death, there's always a rebirth. It's some of the conversation that we've been having a little earlier, right? That we're really in this opportunity to get present in our homes, to let go. There's really only ourself to contend with, in that presence. And so in alchemy, right, it's like you're saying, to radically shift is just also, like Colleen's saying, it's already there, right? We don't really have to do anything because it's already all there. But it seems like we still have to do something to let it go in order to receive it. And if it is just a reset button, we're just kind of on time delay, right? We're just like, oh, my upgrade's taking a while longer. All of us in the earth are doing it at the same time. So
Yeah, it's a good point. Can you hear me okay?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in this circumstance or point in time, what we have to do is wait, and stop. And then when we've kind of, where's Jacqueline gone?
I can still hear you. I'm going to see Summer. I can still hear you, but I'm coming off screen, so you won't hear the dog at the same time. Okay, no, I'll be back.
But it's a good point Jacqueline was making. She's like, we're used to having to do something, and we think we're not doing anything because we're waiting, but we really just have to wait. There's this waiting for that incubation period to go by and being self-isolated, but we're not really isolated. That's the thing. The structures nowadays is that we can be connecting with people overseas in an instant, and we can be calling people. Things aren't as separate as they used to be, but we're feeling like we are separate, and people are going into survival mode because of that.
Lee, I think that's a great point. What I'm getting is that we're separate from our normal program, and then that creates tension. It creates anxiety. It makes us discombobulated because we are creatures of habit. Yeah, and waiting in the space of the unknown, as some of us know, is a very interesting muscle to tone. Yeah. Is to be free in that receiving, because that's when we get to receive. When we don't push or strive or think or do, we can just be, and then we become magnetic, and things become obvious in that space that we give it. It's like someone trying to hand you a huge big watermelon, but you've got your arms closed. You've got to open the space just to allow it to come. Yeah. And be okay just waiting for that transfer. I think that's what I hear you saying, Leah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Are you going to say something, Colleen? It looked like you were going to say something.
Well, I think that there is, like, we grieve our losses, and I think it's important to grieve our losses. And sometimes we don't even know. Sometimes there's collective grief, or there's collective, panic, or there's the collective unconscious that's playing on our energy system, and we're picking up on things that way. But there's a technique that we can use and a lot of it's just inquiry. So one of the questions we can ask ourselves, and we can kind of tune into the heart and just say to ourselves, it's like this now. I really feel at a loss being out of my routine. Like I miss all the people at work, or I miss, being able to go out and gather with people for coffee or for drinks or for whatever. So we can work with that and just remind ourselves, tuning into the body and the heart, it's like this now. I really miss whatever it is, or it's like this now. I'm used to having, in the case here in the US, I'm used to having toilet paper. I might not have toilet paper. That's really awkward. And just hold space for that and acknowledge it. And if we can show up rather than being in denial and panic and pinging around, if we can just show up and meet our experience exactly as it is, that we feel much more free than if we try to go into denial, or if we try to come up with some strategy, because this virus is ungovernable in a way. And so we have to recognize that we don't have control. We don't have control over so many things. But what we can do is just show up in the present moment with a little reminder, it's like this now. This is what I'm feeling right now. And just be really curious. Can I hold space for this discomfort? Can I hold space for this grief? Can I hold space for feeling totally lost right now? And in doing that, eventually we arrive at this observation that things are always changing. Because if we're tuning into what is it like right here, right now for me in this body at this moment in time, or what is it like for my children? Children need attunement. And so children need, they actually need adults who can relate to how they're feeling and say, it seems like you're feeling fearful right now. Like that's how we attune to children. And then we can guide them from there. So we kind of have to match their energy, and then we can steer it in another direction. But with adults, we just do that attunement with ourselves. This is how it is right now. Can I hold space for this? Can I just be present for this? And it's a labor of love for the self, but it prevents us from spinning out, from clinging, and from panicking and doing all these things. So the benefit is for everyone.
A couple things that have come up for me here on this one is, so this idea of collective unconsciousness or collective consciousness. So I'm going to propose that, and essentially what I see is there's a clear division at the moment on that collective. It's like there's a dividing line of those that really feel like, if on a scale of 1 to 10, they're past the 5, they're 6 to 10, that they're confident that this transformation is for the planet's good, that we've been asking for. We didn't expect it to happen this way.
Right.
There's a definite collective consciousness that's saying, in a way, there's like an inner, oh, isn't this cool? We're all experiencing something here.
Yeah.
The world is shut down. The air is, you can see the clouds. I don't hear the planes the same way. People are inside the city, and you're like, wow, I can breathe in the city. When you're living outside the country, it's not so much of a difference because you're used to quiet life. So that collective unconscious is going, whoa. And then there's this other collective unconsciousness that's like, and
right.
Personally, I think that's the shadow. I think we've already transformed. I feel that the collective consciousness is what many of us have been working on and doing. That our vibe, as we were talking earlier with the love virus, like we're not this idea that there's something out there to get us is what we've been living our whole life. There's something out there I've got to do. There's something out there that's going to get me. The government's going to help me. That guy's going to give me the raise, instead of trusting that everything's in here. And so to me, it's like collective unconsciousness, poof, Mother Nature said, look, you're all stuck in your own house now. You're all stuck in your own body. You're all stuck here to look at what's going on in your life. and you get to see your own habits and belief systems. And if you've got millions of dollars, well, guess what? You can't go anywhere with that anymore. You can't travel. You can't go to a restaurant. Maybe you've been Mr. Greedy or Mrs. Greedy before, but now you're like, well, I'm going to go into an underprivileged area, and I'm going to make sure they're all going to have food. That type of heart opening is going to happen, right? That's what we're given versus this thing over here. I think it's just the old stuff. It's just the old stuff that you were talking about releasing. Is that true? Is any of that true? If you're really a spiritual being in consciousness and presence, is that really true? Nothing's really true. So pick a story that empowers you. Pick one that makes you want to share and go out there and wow, I don't know where this all came from. But anyways, okay, so it was like I met you guys and I came back and I felt like I needed to speak now. Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling this idea that our collective consciousness is passé, gone, and we've got this new one that we're all in, that we've done our inner work, and these people over here weren't ever going to go do their inner work. They weren't going to go to a mindfulness retreat. They weren't going to meditate quietly. They weren't going to do any of that. And now we've forced them into their house to look at their habits.
Well, they might still be on. People might still make, habitual kinds of choices. But I think one of the things that you're pointing at, when you get to the place where you're just being, you're not a story maker anymore. So you don't have to have a story about the planet's getting better or the planet's getting worse, or, we're all in mayhem or whatever. You're just being. You've transcended any need for a story, and you're just resting with things as they are. So you're resting in truth rather than trying to make a story to rationalize everything. And when you can just be, regardless of what's going on around you, you don't feel panic. It doesn't feel crazy. To me, it feels like there's something very joyful about what's happening. There's a different kind of joy that I'm sensing out of this. And I assume that it actually might be the most healthy thing for the planet in the long run. But I'm not really making up any big stories. I'm just content, and I feel, I feel fine. And so that's you can choose to work toward arriving at that place. You don't have to choose it. You can choose to, stay wherever you are. But there's definitely a path if you're in anxiety and you're making up all these stories and you're in, greed or aversion, or, it feels like you're spiraling out of control. There's liberative techniques that you can use. Some people have to do those techniques, for lifetimes before they arrive at a kind of permanent state of liberation. But you can get it in glimpses. And if you have it in glimpses, it transforms your relationship to the world. And you start to feel the interconnected that you already have to everything. You start to acknowledge that there's unity and there's love. So it gets very quiet. It's a very still kind of existence. And not everybody, I think right now, people are grieving the hubbub. They're grieving the loss of the noise and the constant activity. And it's a big adjustment to arrive at a place where stillness becomes your baseline. But it's doable, it's possible.
Let me just ask you that, because I'm also finding out of doing all these talks all day long, what I'm at now, 8 hours, 9 hours, is there seems to be a bit of a different vibe that comes out of the US as opposed to other places in the world. So I just want to get clear here what each of your 3 experiences are. Okay?
Okay.
So
sure.
Let's start with Leah. How are you experiencing your community right now? would you say, what's going on there? Like that people, that's the whole point. Global Party, we want to just make sure that everybody gets an idea that everybody's having a different experience, and it's okay that we're having a different experience. There isn't just one way that people are going through this.
At the moment, we're just having the exponential increase, like the doubling of numbers. So now things are sort of actually starting to show up here of people being infected, having symptoms. But we also have, I think in Australia, we're a little bit removed from the rest of the world, so we can be a little bit blasé. So while a lot of people are actively self-isolating, even though we're not being forced to, there's still people going out. They talked about Bondi Beach being packed yesterday or the day before, and there were people that were quite horrified by that. And then, but I guess at the moment it hasn't hit us like other countries, but we still get stuff like we have streaming of US. And the last thing I saw in the news was someone going, "We're at war and we need to treat it like war." And I was just like sitting there and like looking at the TV go, oh my God, because I think the language we use is that we use the fight against, but we do hear the US use the war against. And that might be just that we're so far removed that we don't actually bother to come to war half the time. But, it's a very different language. But both of them have the same thing as if we need to resist something outside of ourselves. It's not that different. It's like a slightly different decision on how we might use it. That's what's going on, at least from my perspective of Australia.
And Tess, is that your experience too in your community and around you?
Yes, I would definitely say that there is definitely, like, everyone's not like 100% on board like in Italy. Like, we're not behaving like Italy, total lockdown. Our schools are still open, public transport's still open, but we're all being told not to go to work if we can avoid it. Don't go to work. So there's a lot of mixed messages here, I think, from our government, and I think people are confused and they're looking to research, a lot of researchers, a lot of ideas about why this is happening, where it's come from, what's the hidden agenda. I mean, we do get a lot of American news. Is it about the presidency, the campaign, blah, blah, blah. So I think we're just Australia in general is she'll be right, mate. Like, it's the other agenda which is going on in the world, and how is that going to impact us here? Because we're in the, obviously in the land of, prawns on the barbie and hanging out at the beach. So how does this impact us when America goes to shit? I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Yeah. Me personally, I feel great. I have never felt happy like this since, I think it was just before my father died. So it was like 2008. Have I ever felt this ecstatic and happy? I feel very calm. I'm like, wow, look at all this shit going on. Look at everybody doing all of this stuff. This is fantastic. I just feel joyful and I feel super present, and I feel alive. I actually feel like I was born for this world. I finally feel like I'm in the world now, rather than a black sheep or not understanding or feeling like the odd one out. I'm like, wow, I actually am living. Like, this feels like living.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I heard that a lot from a lot of people that have been doing healing work for a long time. It's like they just feel like they've been waiting their whole life for this moment. We didn't know it. I just felt like yesterday, I think the same thing. It's just like, oh my gosh, every single thing in my life, I can just see clearly now how it was so designed for this, and that would explain why when I would go to the tarot card readers back, years ago, and they go, oh, can't tell you what you're doing, because I don't think they knew what I was supposed to be doing because it hadn't come yet, right? Purpose. So in Toronto, where I am now in Canada, just to give you another little perspective, is pretty much there's a forest sort of right in our city here. It's right really near, and so we can take the dogs, and they go free, and we'll walk on the path. Sometimes we brush by. People are still standing 2.5 meters apart, whatever, that's like 6 feet, as they're kind of saying social distancing. Our grocery stores, our transit, all our that is open, but the restaurants are closed for 2 weeks. The kids were on March break last week, so they closed. They just said, take another 2 weeks. So earlier tonight, I had one of my friends on who was just saying how the difference in government and why you have to really trust yourself, because he left on a Wednesday to go to Costa Rica from Toronto. On the Thursday, the Premier of Ontario said, yeah, you know what, just go ahead, everybody, go on your March vacation. Go on your March break, wherever you need to go. So everybody flew out. And then 3 days later, the Prime Minister said, okay, everybody come home. So it was like, okay, who do you believe? And so they went within and decided to trust, where do you've got to go on airlines. They looked at these things and they assessed, we'll just come home when we need to come home. But the impact of other people is what he was saying, is because then you've got all these other people saying, are you aware you're supposed to come home? Do you know what's going on? And I feel that that's more of the contagious factor. Because if none of us are watching the news, if we're having the media fast, like Colleen said, and someone's coming along and telling us, do you know? And you're like, no, I didn't know. I didn't really care to know, but thank you for telling me. It's like you were saying, is that dumping earlier, Tess, right? They dump on you when you weren't expecting, and then you have to go, okay, I'm responsible for releasing that and clearing that. And if that's one of the things that's going on for all of us now, learning how to manage our energy and our space and drawing boundaries, still being loving and kind, then that's a real gift too. And so in Toronto, most people are feeling that I've met, it's like a forced mental health break, and they're actually enjoying it. If I get them, if they start to say, and I say to them in a moment in the forest, I say, well, really, how are you feeling? Because I'm only going to tell you the positive side. They go, really? It's positive? Okay, good. And then they immediately go, I just needed somebody to tell me it was positive. Some people are like, I thought I was in denial, and it's like they just need somebody to say, it's really okay. That's what's happening here. We all know what's happening in the States, Colleen, but what's happening for you? Because
well, so I definitely am very informed, and I read the news. I find out what's going on, but I've worked in healthcare, and I've seen firsthand where we had to issue quarantines because diseases are contagious and they can kill people. That's a reality. So I have medical people in my life. And one of them is the chief of staff at a big hospital. He's very scared. He really believes that a lot of lives are going to be lost and that there will be significant human losses. I think the science and the math also points to that the potential for incredible loss is very real. So I think that we're dealing with this virus that has its own life, and it doesn't have regard for whether people live or die. So I think that the threat is incredibly real, and I think that if you look at the science of why people need to do social distancing, it's really clear that the disease is going to die down if it doesn't have carriers. So from the math and science point of view, I mean, I take it all very seriously. And I think that it might actually be nature's way of thinning out the human population. To me, it seems like as a species, we have kind of overextended ourselves on planet Earth. So it might be a natural correction. I don't know, but I know where I live, all the restaurants are closed. You can get groceries. The grocery shelves are almost bare. I mean, people really panicked and they bought almost everything. You can you can still go to the bank, you can still go to the pharmacy, the schools are closed. And what I was reading in the news today is that we might be in for this in 5-month-long cycles, where when the virus is really active and spreading, we have to practice diligent social distancing.
So I'm gonna just challenge you a little bit on this one here for a sec, because I'm sure I heard you say earlier, you know, things are a story, right? We tell ourselves a story. So is it a story we're being told about the significance of this? Because in our experience here, life and death happen all the time. And when you really get to the statistics of it all, you know, I think Joyce from Netherlands said earlier that 25,000 people die of starvation every single day on this planet. And nobody's talking about that, right? And nobody's talking about how many people die in a car accident every day, which, you know, the numbers are quite there. Is it that we're being told a story about this whole thing that is then creating more of the story of the fear, and hence keeping those people in that space of fear?
Well, I definitely think there is fear in response to the stories. I definitely think that's very real. And I think that there's precautionary measures that we can take. And there's certain people who are going to overreact and certain people who are going to be more prone to fear. So, I mean, I heard that some people are like going out and buying firearms, afraid that they're going to have to actually defend all of the, you know, whatever the canned goods that they're storing or whatever. I don't know. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that it doesn't come to that. So I think that the story definitely ratchets up the fear. But at the same time, I think it's a deadly illness. I mean, I think it is a deadly illness. And I think it's overwhelming hospitals. It's overwhelming healthcare workers. And some of that is the story. Some people are just, you know, catching a cold and they're just totally freaked out. So they want to get tested. But, you know, there's not enough tests. There's not enough. Here in the US, there's a huge shortage of supplies for medical personnel. There's a shortage of, you know, like the masks and things like that. So it's like definitely chaotic. It's definitely chaotic.
So
But
I'm going to actually take that story that you're just saying, because, okay, so Tess, alchemized. Okay, we've got this sense of, because I can feel it, right? It's like, you know, this whole part of healing from the inside out is to take these experiences that we're having and to transform them. So we recognize that we have everything that we're really talking about as a spiritual being. When we talk about if we're present and everything is present in that moment, then I just feel like this is this time that really we need to be who we say we're being versus just talking about it. We have to be it. So if there's a story about this whole thing, how can we alchemize it? Leah or Tess, because you both alchemize, you unravel things.
We're very good friends. Yeah.
I go first, Tess?
Yeah, you go for it, Leah, because I feel like this is your segment.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, this is my perspective of my research is that the latest stuff has come about South Korea, and they've done the best way to manage. I mean, they still have some deaths, but they've done the best to manage it in that they allowed 4 companies to manufacture tests really early. And so they have heaps of tests, and they don't just test the people who have symptoms, they're testing people who they suspect, you know, from like church groups and stuff, like someone showed up to the community, and they're catching hold of it a lot faster. The other aspect is that their statistics are different to the rest of the world. So their death rate's a lot lower than the rest of the world because of the way that they're testing. And then they're responding to it by, instead of, they learned their lesson early that people who are critically ill go to hospital, and they've set up interim clinics for people who just have mild symptoms, because a lot of people are just having, they're not even showing symptoms. and they're having mild symptoms, and there's only like 20% or even less that are having, and what they're assuming is called the cytokine storm inside of our lungs. So it's our own, I looked it up, it's like you're having a pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory cytokine response at the same time, causing chaos in your own lungs, and your immune system is causing damage to the point your organs are failing, and they're the people who are. And then, of course, if you're immune compromised, you're going to always be a weak link. The other thing that's interesting is that in SARS, MERS, and COVID-19, all coronaviruses, children under 10 are not dying. None of them died during SARS or MERS. It was only the older you get. Like, so there's something going on, and that's where I think the key is. It's like, why are kids having very mild symptoms or just fever? And like, you know, is it something about our nutrition, or is it something about the older we get, or the pollutants or the toxic metals or something that make us more susceptible as we get older? What is it? And instead of searching for a vaccine, which they never found for SARS or MERS, they never created a viable vaccine for it. So why are we searching for a vaccine? Why not find that mysterious structure that seems like these kids that are like, you know, getting over it really quickly? Why not find out why and put more money and research into that? So like, it's like, I guess the overall story I'm trying to say is that it's like our response to it that seems to be making a difference to how the outcome is, rather than, you know, us all going into panic because this is like the unknown, and yeah, we can respond to it differently.
I think that
what I heard there is how we respond. We're all so-called being affected by this, as we were calling it, some of us earlier, this gift that's causing us this experience to cause a transformation. And yes, in this experience, it is going to cause some deaths. It is going to cause stress. It is going to cause suffering. But that's always been a part of, I go back to the background of Leah, the circle of life. Okay? So we're being confronted now by death because it could be lingering there any moment outside in front of us, right? That's the, you know, it's like, ooh, it could get me. And I'm not ready, right? You know, and I mean, in that situation, but it's the response of each country, and what everybody's doing is different. It's the response of what you were talking about earlier, Tess, about how you help people respond to the situation. And that's only something we can control, right? That's what each of us can control. We can't control anything else. We can't control if they have tests or if they don't have tests. We can't control if people stay in their houses or don't stay in their houses. We can't control if they're buying, or we can't control any of that. All we can control is our own beingness. And isn't that what most of us have been on this journey to do, is to notice who we are a being? And we've been on that journey. And now the whole world is actually getting that education in a really quick way. It's like, you can't do anything anymore. Sorry, you just can't do it. You can hang out in nature, you can go get groceries, go on the internet, but all your doingness is gone. So response. I think that's brilliant. Response. So response. What do you have to test? Respond to the response.
When you were just sharing that, Jacqueline, what jumped out for me really big time was that, like, something is going to get us. We're going to die at any moment and we don't know. And that is the absolute truth. And that has been since the day we were born.
Yeah.
Or even the moment we were conceived, that is the absolute truth.
And death at any time, nothing's ever guaranteed.
No, it's almost like the frenzy of the reset button. Let's call it a reset button.
Yeah.
To start again in a new way. Is the panic and the reaction to that, not the response, but the reaction to it, is creating another imaginary tiger, like. And so our nervous systems have all gone haywire.
Mm-hmm.
in that, and so we're reacting in old ways, in scarcity ways. Yeah, that was what really jumped out for me, was
And it's true.
the old program. Yeah, it's the old program.
Yeah, a lot of people, I'm noticing myself and other people are having sniffles, having like slightly sore throats, people having full-on fever and getting tested, and it's not coronavirus. It's like our reality, like the stress of it probably is bringing our immune system down anyway, and we're getting more susceptible. Our response is affecting our reality to almost make it be true until we get a test or objective feedback that it's not actually what we think it is.
And then there's false positives as well.
Yeah, that's true.
What do you want to rely on? You want to rely on your intuition, self-love, like really, like, just bring it back in. That's right. Bring it back to yourself.
Well, I also, someone told me, and I'm not biblical, but there was some scripture somewhere that said, you said you would only take 1,000 and you took 1,000,000. And no, I only took 1,000. The fear took the 1,000,000. And to me, this is that idea, is the virus itself is, it might be going everywhere, but the real statistics of what's going on so far have been manageable. But the conversation about it, because there were more H1N1 deaths, right, in 2009. It was a pandemic. Most people didn't even know, really, we had a pandemic already? Yes. And when Addie was talking earlier about, what you think about, you bring about. How many people have gone and watched all those movies about the end of the earth or the end of time and the magic virus and, blah, 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 blah. So now we're in the experience.
And it's not as bad as the movies.
Right.
I was expecting like zombies. My husband's waiting for zombies to come out, like flesh-eating zombies, because it's more entertaining. But I mean, I don't want to live that. But yeah, it's true. The H1N1 is a different family, and it's definitely way more. You'd consider that way more deadly. Ebola, way more deaths and fatalities. But this one is. Used to be, before the whole the last three big ones, which was SARS, MERS and COVID, used to be just a common cold. That was what the coronavirus is known for. SARS, apparently the Chinese government, because it came out of there as well, kept it quiet, so we didn't have the panic. We also didn't have social media like we do now, so we didn't have that contagion of panic that happened for this one. Even though they kept a little bit quiet, but they didn't keep it as long as SARS. They actually kept it quiet for a year, I think. So no one knew the SARS was going around. And
well, in Toronto, we actually had one of the people come from the rest, whatever it was. So we had 23 or 24 deaths in Toronto related to SARS, and WHO said, don't go there, right? So we were all aware of it. We've had deaths in Ontario, related to this situation. So there are things we learned from that. But what I'm saying is life just went on completely the same when that happened,
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference, is the conversation that everything is shut down. So everybody, then if you're listening to the news, you're starting to wonder what's really going to happen. And if we start to trust in here, we go, there's going to be, industry might never be the same. There may never be the same sort of flight schedule, that we had. Travel might change. But Airbnb already started to shift travel. So the hotel chains were already, having issues. So there is a redistribution going on in the whole economy. And I think I'm like, Tess, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time. This is more of, to me, instead of watching a baseball game, a soccer game, or a football game, right, or rugby, it's like, ooh, wow, let's watch how this plays out. Woo.
Yeah. And that perspective as well, Leah, that you were bringing in about the other viruses and that, and just as you were sharing that, Jacqueline, what really downloaded was that there's still those wars that are going on in the world. There's still malaria deaths. There's still people starving. All of that is still going on, but we've always lived in a way in the Western world, so to say, that it doesn't impact us.
Right.
You know, we get to choose if we want to engage in that conversation, if we want to do something about it, you know, if we want to support. But most of the time, it's not on anybody's radar at all. And so now it's like we're getting this crisis moment where we're like, because of the media frenzy, really, you know, is wow, we're suffering. We're having these things put onto us, just like what has been going on in the world for decades, centuries, millennia, in other parts of the world. So I think it's very humbling. I'm finding a humbleness in that, and I'm feeling it's important for me anyway to remember that there's other people that don't have the opportunity to hoard toilet paper. They just don't have any, you know. So to put it into perspective, yeah.
Yeah, I went to the bank the other day, and some of the tellers had, you know, the masks on, and I was just saying, how are you guys making out here? Because I'm sure some of the people don't want to be there, right? Because some of the, like, a lot of workers are off, but some of the other ones are saying, well, you're still got to show up. You've got to be there. And some of them are, the bank manager said, you know, my parents came from Syria. They lived through war for 5 years, no water, no electricity. She said it could have been very easy for them to shut down everything entirely in the city for 3 weeks. Just send everybody home and just say there's nothing to do but hang out in your house. She goes, they're all about money here. And she worked for bank, but I mean, in a sense, there is that Western world has always put money as a priority, right? And I think that is also being a shift, and that will change. As I've heard a few people, small business owners, going, okay, I'm committed to getting my employees paid through this. You know, I don't know quite how I'm going to do this, but one guy was like, if I have to tap into my personal savings, I'm going to do it, because he just feels obligated, you know, to take care of them. The government has kicked in that sure people can get unemployment insurance and take care of that part. So there is money that's being geared toward part-time employees that we're losing work. But it is that idea that we're in that space that it's time to take care of everybody.
Mm.
And not just over here. It's like in Africa, Ebola, you know, like they used to test you before you went into the country, right? That was a protocol, because they wanted to make sure you weren't bringing anything in. And so lots of that, as you're saying, is going on, and they don't have food or electricity or water. And we're sitting at home going, you know what, when I go to the store, there might not be some things there. Or I can't go to the restaurant. My favorite sports team is gone. That doesn't take away from the healthcare, like your family, Colleen, and the people that are in healthcare, because they're, again, inundated with all that experience. You know, the people that are showing up to do those things, they still need to be acknowledged, right? But it is a restructuring on every single level.
Yeah, it's a whole way of life that, you know, potentially it could be over. I mean, it could shift the way that we live. So I don't really want to minimize that. But at the same time, I think that there's probably opportunities in it, you know. I have heard that some of the medical staff are kind of exhausted and they're sort of tapped out. I mean, my son's an EMT and he's, you know, fine. He still has a normal schedule. And, but I think it depends on how many cases are in a specific community. And then because of how contagious the disease is, I think that there's just an edge that potentially, it could level the way that we've lived for a long time. So I don't really want to minimize that, because I think it is a big deal. And I think that we have to acknowledge losses, and we have to support people through whatever kind of change cycle it is. And with that, it's grief and loss and anger and all of those things are really just normal things that happen to human beings when they go through a huge period of loss. So to me, I see people struggling with, they're just not used to, I mean, like I'm a householder yogi. I have a practice of just being, right? But most people don't. A lot of people are just driven, and they're used to, going and having freedom and having whatever they want at their fingertips and being able to purchase new things. And, it's, so it's a big shift.
And it's a big shift. And then I'm hearing Tess words like there's some people that don't have toilet paper, and
there's some for whom it's not going to change their way of life. For some people, it won't change their way of life. And can we figure out how to live without toilet paper? We probably can. I mean, I think there's many things that we could live without. We could definitely live much more simple lives. And to me, I think that actually might be more harmonious for the environment, more harmonious for the natural world. But it's still an adjustment for people who are used to having comforts at their disposal every day.
So
it's a good point, actually, regarding like when you go into grief and everything like that, you forget that there's support out there. Like you go into the pain so much that you forget all the opportunities that are available to you in the moment, unless you've gone through the shift already of being able to sit in your own stuff and sit in the chaos that might be going on and being able to just be with it. But if you haven't got that, you believe the stories and then you forget, and you can't even see all the potential help that could be available to you in that moment.
And there's something really beautiful. What
if we just let go of the story, right? What if we just had a brand new moment now? Okay, brand new moment now, brand new moment now, brand new moment now.
Well, we do have that.
So if we have that, then the stories from the past aren't here, are they? Because it's a brand new moment now, unless we're bringing those stories in, unless each of us are bringing that story forward.
And I think that's where it gets into the territory of, unconscious DNA stuff that we're not aware of, the story. When we're not aware of the story, that's where the work that Leah and I do is based on intuition, where we can go into those parts, or, we can see past the rational mind and the fog that it creates in what is really running the show.
And a big part of the training and the work is about being able to see what stories are running. Like the intuition's there all the time, but it's just whispering in the background. And unless you can just sit and be, or you can be able to get into the unconscious and bring it into consciousness and go, oh, this isn't true. Like I believe it, like I feel like I believe it, but actually when I bring it to light, it's not true. And then suddenly, then you can tap into that intuition that's just always sitting there, always giving you the next step that you don't have to have 10 steps in advance worked out, because you can trust that connection.
Gold, right there, gold.
Say it again.
I can't.
I know.
I could say it. I'll say it again. Let me see if I can say it again, because it was brilliant. It happens all the time. What did I say? That when you think and feel that something is real, you're conscious of that. And if you allow yourself to bring the unconscious to consciousness, then you can usually see that's not real at all. even though you might think it and might feel that it's real. So we can't, once we bring what's dark up to the light, once we bring what's hidden up into being seen, only then can we really get those intuitive streams of information that are there all the time. Because by naming it, it releases the energy. By acknowledging it, it releases the energy. Paraphrasing slightly, but pretty much in essence, Leah.
Yes. When you shed the light on in a flashlight in a dark room, it's no longer dark. Right? So to me, this is what I was saying before about consciousness. If we're all this consciousness saying, hey, you know what, we see this as a transformation, right? We are experiencing this as this transformation. We are that light that is shining back over here. And so that is only going to have that ability for them to heal from the inside out. You know, it's interesting, like for me, way back 3 years ago, it was like the number that came through me that was like, I'm the vision or the expression of 1 billion people being healed from the inside out. And I remember like, 1 billion people, wow. And people said, 1 billion people, that's a lot of people. And I'm like, I'm not directly responsible for that, but I'm that vision that's being there. And I was like, that might take 25, 30 years. But yesterday I was just like, you know what? We could all be healed from the inside out in this, like, poof, who would have thought? Everybody is in their own inner being now, in their own space. And if they can transform, we can. We could have it faster than we think it was. Sure, there might be an elastic band. It might be a forward and a backwards a little bit and some rebalancing. But if we feel we're moving forward, if we feel we're having this shift that bringing things back into balance, if that's what comes in through the heart, because you're not going to get that answer up here, because I'm going to have the story. So I'm having the story. I'm the forever optimist. I'm having the story. It's all working out. Okay. But in my heart, I completely feel that this is, like Tess said earlier, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. Right? That this is it. This one moment in time.
Yeah. And it's interesting that languaging that you use about moving forward or feeling like you're moving forward. And what research and science is showing, you know, with that we have this torus field, this toroidal field that encompasses us, and each organ has one. And that's that energy that is, it's like the Tesla energy coil, you know, it's forever, you know, this, and so it's like this donut thing. Yeah. It's this donut of energy, which is moving all the time. And it gives us the appearance that we're moving forward. But actually what we're doing is we're standing completely still and we're experiencing things that are coming into our realm, into our awareness. And so I've often found that if I let go of that moving forward, I let go of the strive, the push, the comparison, and it helps me come to just being in an experience.
Yeah.
And noticing that that has changed from the previous experience. Yeah, I just find that really powerful.
It's fascinating.
Very valid.
So stay present.
Yes.
But being doesn't always mean that it's painless, that there isn't a struggle. And I think it's, you know, if we look at nature, for example, when a snake sheds its skin, even though that's just, you know, its truth, it's outgrown its skin, it struggles to release the old skin. There's a really visible struggle that goes on. And it's the same thing. I think you were using this metaphor of, you know, a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. There's some point at which there's some distress in the caterpillar, and it needs to go through definite physical steps in order to transform. And then it goes into the chrysalis, and it's in this gelatinous stage where it's like nothing. And then when the butterfly emerges, if you've ever seen that, it's really messy. It looks almost bloody. So even though, you know, we're saying that, you know, this might be in the end it could potentially be a very good thing. That doesn't mean that it's going to be painless, whether you have a story or not. There might still be some pain and some struggle. And so the transition, it might not be this easy thing. It might not be.
It's true. Like, I mean, if you look at all the shifts that might have happened in your life, usually there's some discomfort that drove you to look deeper into why and look into yourself. It's just whether you panic or whether you take the time to go through the transformation that potential is there to go through at that time. Yeah, it's true. I mean, most of it's uncomfortable.
And grief and anxiety and pain, those are intelligences that, I mean, I just don't want to discard them as if, everybody should be beyond them. There's intelligence in human emotions. And so rather than blocking it, if we can show up for it, if grief is being known, if panic is being known, if anxiety is being known, if resistance is being known, those are all lawful in the sense that they happen to human beings. And so I think that there's value in just showing up and being present for life as it emerges, without judging it right or wrong, or without trying to say that, we're all going to be in our happy place, because I don't think we are. I think we're going to have to embrace discomfort, and that there's great strength that comes from experiencing failure and experiencing struggle. So I guess I don't necessarily think that just because we don't have a story, it's going to be this really easy thing. It could be, but it might not be.
Yeah, and I can speak from myself, like me going from the caterpillar to like the butterfly, and that experience of breaking down. Heck, there's all kinds. Just the other night, like it was like all of a sudden experience in my heart, and I could feel the cracking and the expression, and I cried for like an hour and a half. I call that releasing, right?
Right.
I go, hey, I can feel something here that is foreign to who I am, and I'm releasing it. Whereas 10 years ago, I would have said, oh my gosh, I have this pain in my heart. I'm sad. Why am I sad? Where's the pattern? What do I need to do? How do I need to look at it? Where now it's just like, okay, this doesn't belong to me. This I can tell, right? So let the emotion go through it, release it. So most definitely people need to go through their things. It's like the butterfly has to have the wings strong enough to get out of the chrysalis. So there's a reason each of us have so-called trials and tribulations, because we're each going to have whatever we need. My personal belief, everybody's going to receive whatever they need to receive in order for them on their journey. I do feel I won't know until one day. I still have these ideas of the universe. Like, am I a spiritual being? Am I a holographic image? What the heck it is? Am I just an expression of the divine? But I'm going to get to that point where I signed up for this. I was like, this is your role, Jacqueline. Do you want to play it? And I was like Meryl Streep. And I went, yeah, I can play that one really well. Ooh, yeah, I can do that. Right? Can't do Leah. Can't do Tess. No, Colleen. I can't do that either. Right? She meditates too long. But that's the idea, is I signed up, and then I forgot I signed up, and then I went and wallowed around in self-pity and said, please, somebody rescue me, and had that experience. And then I was like, okay, I got to rescue myself, and then I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of what I wanted, like the topic I wanted to talk about was, like you can utilize all the grief, or all the uncomfortableness or the uncomfortable emotions, and make that mean something about you and your survival and your limitations, and that things aren't going to work out for you. Or you could use it as creative fuel. Like, there's a lot of innovation. Like, I think World War II, while like there was a lot of terrible things that happened, there was like a big burst of technology and things like that, because it was like that discomfort, and the humanity has this creativity in us, and each person has their own thread of what their creativity doesn't have to be just art. There's different ways. You can have a healing art, you can be creating technology, but it's that discomfort that can be creative fuel to bring into something that is beyond like the everyday norm, that we have toilet paper and that we can go out and go to a cafe and things like that. It's like suddenly something changes, and who knows how Airbnb and Uber and all that came about. Like that may have came about through discomfort as well, but they did change society and change how we operated, even though in reality nature's still there, the butterflies are still there, birds are still singing each day. You know, there's all this stuff that's going on in our perception. But yeah, but then in that we can be creating stuff from this. Things can go on it doesn't have to go down a trajectory of doomsday. It could go into something way beyond that. We wouldn't have happened if we didn't have, I don't know, the mass panic of the toilet paper, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure where the point is of the panic that happened, but
nobody gets it. But that's the funny thing, is I don't think anybody understood why it was toilet paper that was the first thing that people went to grab. I think I posted something that someone had given me. It was like, well, if you need 144 rolls of toilet paper, there's something else going on with you, you know? It's the same. It's like lightening up. Someone else was saying, I used to cough to cover up my fart, and now I have to fart to cover up my cough, right? You know, and it's like we need to relax because if we really know, the media has always been there to keep us. They sell, like even in Canada here, people are starting to wake up to it, and they're saying, what the heck, man? They said, this is what we're doing, we've limited it now from 100 to 50, and the media are saying, oh, so you're saying it's getting worse? Why didn't you do that yesterday? And it's like, because today, you know, it's the first time I heard the government be present. Today, it's going to be 50. Today, we have new information. Today, this is how it's going to be. And they're like, so you made a mistake. And it's like, so things are getting worse. And this is what people are telling me that they're hearing and they're feeling, they're noticing in their self. Why am I listening to this? They're not helping me. And that is the gift of their experience, right? Is if they start to notice the fear, or they're getting anxious, or they're just getting tight because they're listening to someone. If they're identifying with somebody else, maybe a best friend or a good friend, that is, we had a woman here earlier, her husband works for the CDC. In Australia, you might not know what that is. That's the Center for Disease Control in the States.
Oh, CDC.
Okay, and he comes home, and I said, my hat goes off to you, because I wouldn't know what to do with if, you know, with all that information he had, right? I'd be like, talk to the pillow first, get rid of it, you know, like, but he needs to share, like, because he's had this experience. So she says, like, she's in prayer mode way longer, right? She's on gratitude mode because she knows she needs to keep herself strong, because her environment now has changed with her husband about what he's having to deal with. So I don't think there's any answer for any of us. But I love the fact that you were saying, make grief your creative fuel, because everybody here, if they have a purpose and their job is to be purposeful, and we're creative beings, then this grief that everybody's experiencing, wow, we could have so many amazing things happen beyond our wildest comprehension because people get creative.
Yeah. Oh, Leah. Oh, just got some gold. If grief is an energy and we take the label grief off it, it's still an energy. So if we're finding that we're energized by something, grief, joy, whatever, do something with it. I think that's in a nutshell, really, is if you take off the emotion from the energy that you're feeling, it's still energy that you can use. In the creative orientation is preferred, rather than going deeper down into the spiral of darkness.
Exactly.
Writing it.
Yeah, as soon as you make it about you and whether you're not going to survive or someone's out to get you, as soon as that, like, you've just lost all that it's kind of like intuition, right? That creativity is there all the time, ready to be tapped into. The intuition's there all the time to be tapped into. But as soon as you're like, this idea of, you know, separation or unviability, I'm not going to survive, and there's like a time limit that we have, and that's it. It's like you've just squashed any of that flow that could be moving through you, really.
Can I just throw like a whole new angle into this conversation?
Go for it.
Okay, so I was having this conversation with one of my senior teachers, a meditation master, and he's written several books. His belief is that everything is predetermined. So while we're sitting here talking about, well, we could use this approach or we could use that approach, consider that all of this might already be scripted. And this is what he said. It's important to keep in mind that none of us is in control of these lives. Ramana Maharshi, who was the great saint from India, who, you know, people traveled the world over to visit him and ask him questions, and he would be able to give scientists answers to their problems and things of this nature. And, you know, he was a great saint. So Ramana Maharshi and Albert Einstein discovered the same thing. The questioner said, "How did you make your amazing discoveries?" And Einstein replied, "I claim credit for nothing. Everything is determined, the beginning as well as the end, by forces over which we have no control. It's determined for the insect as well as for the star, human beings, vegetables, or cosmic dust. We all dance to a mysterious tune intoned in the distance by an invisible piper." So then the questioner asked Ramana Maharshi, "Are only the important things in a person's life, such as their main occupation or profession, predetermined, or are trifling acts also, such as taking a cup of water or moving from one part of the room to another?" And Ramana replied, "Everything is predetermined."
Yeah.
It's a whole different take on it.
I didn't see
It's a
how
whole
that's
different.
a changing conversation, though, because to me, that's kind of what it's all been being said.
Well, I think that people are kind of, you know, I guess I've heard different things, like if you tap into your intuition, then this, or if this, then that. And we might not even have that much control. We might not. It might be delusion. We might all just be delusional that we have choice, that we can create change in the world. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I would like to like, I talk about inner guidance because I feel like people can relate to that conversation. But I feel like I'll say to people this concept of my free will chooses my inner guidance. My inner guidance is really me surrendering to the role that I am in the production that's going on here. So it's like I have just sort of downloaded when I said I feel like I finally have been designed for this. It's like I finally got to this other surrender that this has nothing to do with me completely. I mean, I've had glimpses of that. I just have to show up, and what comes out of me comes out of me. It's like when Tess is saying tonight, there's the download, right? It's like, so I feel like, you know, there's people that have said, oh, they could have seen this 10 years ago or 100 years ago. This was forecasted that was going to happen in this way. And if you just knew that, then it all comes back to the moment, doesn't it? In that sense of it's all there. We're all doing it, and we have no control over it. The young group that we had from Costa Rica, that's their whole beingness, is that they went through all their belief systems, et cetera, their shadows, to come to the point of saying, is there any difference I really make? Because if it's all predetermined, is there any difference I really make? Then that could mean everybody just lies around, right? So I feel like everybody has, it's like a symphony. Sometimes we're a rest, sometimes we're emotion. And whatever we're being and whatever we're thinking is part of that process. right? If we're thinking it's intuition, isn't that part of the whole thing? It's predestined. If everything's predestined, if you're going to say that everything we're talking about is scripted, we were really good actors, everybody. Yeah, okay. We read our parts and we've done them really well, and that's what it is. Does it truly really matter, except if you're uncomfortable with the situation and you're holding on to that uncomfortableness? And then again, then it's all perfect, isn't it? Because then you have that experience.
Who was it? Was it Bruce Lipton said that we've actually come here to just eat chocolate and experience life? Is that right? We've just come here to experience. I was watching Soul Sessions with Oprah, and there was a guy on there. I can't remember his name, but she said she came across his book like 30 years ago, and it completely changed her life. And he has this analogy between the mothership, which is the soul, and then you're the little boat on the ocean down here, and that your role is to keep following the mothership. And our free will allows us the opportunity to, like a plane, to go off course and course correct, and that is so that we can have this physical experience. Otherwise we're just love up there without a body. We can't have hot and cold or chocolate. And so, yeah, I found that really amazing to have that sense of it. Yeah, it probably is predetermined. A lot of things are predetermined. I also kind of subscribe to that there are multiple ways that we can go that are predetermined, and that's where our free will comes in. So we could choose lots of things. And I watched The Notebook last night. I don't know if you've seen it. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
At the end, the question is raised: is our love strong enough for us to be together like forever? And then they go to sleep, and that's it. So it's like they chose love to be together and to die at the same time together in their sleep. And I was like, wow, that's so amazing. Like, just the power of love and the intention to never be without each other. That deep soul commitment to take the last breaths together is something that is predetermined for them. It was so obvious that they needed to be together in that movie forever. And just the synchronicity, it was just, yeah, I just feel it's rather apt at the moment if we're talking about free will and the power of our intention to follow our truth of our soul expression.
I think we've touched on many different levels of this experience. And I think if I went back and I go listen to it, I'd be amazed at some of the things we actually said. So I know, Leah, you probably want to even expand on the creativity, but I'm going to say, give this opportunity, because it's 9 o'clock, if you need to disembark, if there's any last parting words, then let's start with, we'll start with Tess, Colleen, and Leah, and we'll go from there. Is there anything else you want the viewers to know at this point in time about this whatever it's happening?
I feel like I just said that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I guess all I have to say, I'm not an expert. I don't know what to say other than I think that there are ways that we can meet the moment that reduce our suffering. And if we can reduce our own suffering, it spreads. So, but I'm not really an expert in any of this. It's just simply a conversation opportunity. I wish everyone well. I sincerely hope that, people aren't needlessly suffering. That's very important to me. But
to follow on from that, yeah, like Colleen said, like when you reduce suffering, it spreads, and suffering can spread as well. And I think I kind of saw like this virus like being contagious and going out there, but also the panic also being like a virus in itself, and mixed with misinformation and true information and all in between. But yeah, it's like my parting words is make the most of it. Make the most of it in whatever way that you can only know what brings yourself joy. So make the most of it. And then whatever brings you joy will spread to other people. Or if you're creative, then other people will be inspired by that creativity. Or people just coming back to themselves and can actually spread to other people to bring in their own self-awareness and enlightenment through that too.
See, it's the love virus.
Love virus.
It's I don't know what the acronym, but the virus is like something about getting back in touch with your spiritual self. It's like in spirit is or uniting in spirit is the end. I don't know I can't remember what the VIRS is, but somebody took that acronym to say it's about, I don't know, very whatever it would be, uniting in spirit. And I feel like that works for me. So, Leah, if you would like to continue to expand, or if any of you do want to do, I'm going to take a short break. So I'm going to put we can come back in a moment if you want to, Kara. Otherwise, I want to say thank you for being here at this moment. I gotta go. And I realized I didn't really plan that part of the equation, and because usually I've done like maybe 45 minutes and waited to the top of the hour, but this seems to just keep going and going all day. And you're all welcome to stay on beyond if you'd like, but I'm going to say we're going to close down this one, and I'll set a new link if you want to come back. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay.